I'm Tariq Milrose, and yes, I saw the clip. The one where the politician was saying something so confidently wrong, it deserves to be studied in schools. I've rewatched it 3 times, partly for research, partly because it's oddly fascinating watching someone dig a hole and jump in. But we're not here to gawk. We're here to break it down. Hit that subscribe button because trust me, today's story has more layers than a bureaucratic excuse, and we're peeling them all. Buckle up. It's about to get uncomfortable in the best way.
Republicans scream about government waste while lying about workers, smearing diversity, and blocking real solutions for America's future. Stay tuned for this video as we call out GOP hypocrisy, defend public workers, and fight for real progress.
Madam Chair, and quite honestly, Director Ahuja, I don't know where to start today. You can't or won't answer our questions, or maybe you're ignoring me right now as I'm speaking to you. You can or won't answer questions about whether or not the federal government funds sex change surgery on kids. Some on the left are calling that gender-affirming care. Quite frankly, it's worse than that. There's no scientific data to support it. And just because someone doesn't agree with chopping off the private parts of a 15-year-old doesn't mean we are bullying children. I find it ridiculous. Do whatever you want to do as an adult, but by God, don't do it to our kids. And I find it offensive that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are calling us bullies because we don't want to chop off the breasts of a 15-year-old girl, and we certainly don't want the federal government funding it. You can or won't answer questions on how many federal employees work from home. You are the director of the Office of Personnel Management. I don't know how. You don't know the answer to this question. You have obfuscated today. You can't even tell us the most basic data about how many federal employees worked from home before COVID, during COVID, and now after COVID. Like, why are you here if you can't even answer our questions? You can answer questions all day long related to DEI, but you hide behind you won't answer questions about bargaining agreements. You just hide behind them and won't answer those questions. Do you know what happens when you have a job in the private sector and you don't show up? What happens?
Congresswoman, I don't quite understand the question.
You're the director of the Office of Personnel Management, and you don't know in the private sector if you don't show up to work, you know what happens? You get fired. Like, how do you oversee federal employees, and you can't even answer the simplest, most basic questions here today? Like, why are you here if you can't answer our questions? Why are you here if you can't or won't answer our questions?
Congresswoman, I am trying my best to...
You're not. You're obfuscating. You're filibustering. You're refusing to answer the most basic of questions that the taxpayers, quite frankly, on both sides of the aisle, deserve to hear. Federal employees are not showing up to work. That is a fact. You're physically here today, but you are not actually showing up to work because you are not answering any of our questions. So I would like to know, my second question, why the director of the Office of Personnel Management doesn't know what's happening with federal employees.
Well, Congresswoman, I do take issue with that characterization. I've shared a lot today on our guidance, our processes, how we're supporting agencies, whether it's telework, remote work, the benefits.
You haven't. Do you think the American taxpayers who sign the front of your paycheck, do you think that they deserve answers?
We serve
Do you think
the
they deserve to
public,
know how many people aren't showing up to work? Do the American taxpayers deserve to know that answer?
Well, Congresswoman, our employees show up every day, and
they don't. They absolutely do not, and there's data showing that and supporting that. We've mentioned that data today, and you've ignored it, and in fact, you're not telling the truth. Cybersecurity is very important to this committee. I'm going to move on to another subject. Cybersecurity is very important to this committee. I had a hearing yesterday as a subcommittee chairman of technology and cybersecurity on oversight. We had a hearing with Dr. Eric Schmidt and others from MIT on AI. Do you know how many of our IT workers in the federal workforce are over the age of 60?
I don't know that exact number, but I know we trend within the cyber IT workforce.
Do you know how
as an
many
older
of our
workforce.
federal employees in the IT space and our federal workforce are under the age of 30?
I believe it's 4% or a little less than 4%.
Correct, it's just under 4%. Did you know that there are 4 times as many IT workers over the age of 60 than IT workers under the age of 30?
I do know we swing in a
Yes or
certain
no?
direction.
That wasn't a filibustering question, yes or no? Did you know that?
I knew about the,
Yes or no? Answer the question. It's a simple question. So my last question to you is, what are you doing to reform the hiring process to take on these jobs when all these individuals retire who are over the age of 60?
Thank you for that question. We actually have a robust cyber talent management plan that we are looking to submit to Congress very soon that is going to focus on hiring flexibilities and other efforts across government, similar to what we've done with DOD and DHS. It is about increase in pay, other flexibilities, so we can bring in cyber talent.
Does that include education as well? Because there are a lot of IT workers that don't need a 4-year college degree to do those jobs.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Does that include education considerations? Like, you don't need a 4-year degree to be a computer IT engineer?
No, absolutely. We have a whole effort around skills-based hiring, and the IT cyber community is a perfect example of it. Doesn't matter like where you get your skills, or whether you got a particular degree or education, but actually that you have those skills.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mace. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes.
What we just witnessed is yet another Republican circus. They bring in Director Ahuja from the Office of Personnel Management, and instead of actually asking serious questions about governance, technology, or workforce planning, they launch into culture war talking points, misinformation, and flat-out lies. This isn't about oversight, it's about spectacle. It's about feeding red meat to the MAGA base while ignoring the real issues facing American workers and families. First, let's deal with the most disgusting part of this whole exchange, the attack on transgender Americans. The Republican Congresswoman opened her time not with a good faith question about staffing, budgets, or IT modernization, but with an outright smear, spinning this hateful fantasy about chopping off private parts of 15-year-olds and accusing Democrats of bullying. Let's call this what it is, bigotry dressed up as oversight. There is no wave of federally funded surgeries being secretly performed on kids. That's a lie. What Republicans are doing here is twisting the phrase gender-affirming care into a boogeyman. Gender-affirming care is not about butchering children. It's about doctors, families, and patients making deeply personal healthcare decisions that in most cases involve counseling, supportive services, and, when appropriate, medical treatments carefully aligned with established science. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, and every major health authority recognize that gender-affirming care saves lives. That is the scientific data, whether Republicans want to accept it or not. But instead of acknowledging that, the GOP peddles scare tactics and falsehoods. Why? Because it keeps their base outraged. Because fear and hate are their organizing tools. This hearing wasn't about protecting kids. It was about demonizing vulnerable communities and scoring cheap political points. That's the Republican way under Trump. Create fake problems, then position yourself as the only defender against them. Then came the second act of this performance, the so-called scandal of federal employees working from home. Now, let's pause here. We've just gone through a global pandemic that reshaped the way work happens across every sector of the economy. Millions of Americans discovered that remote work can be efficient, productive, and in many cases, better for families. But Republicans don't want to accept that. They cling to this outdated idea that if you're not physically sitting at a desk in a government office building, you're somehow not doing your job. That's nonsense. Director Ahuja tried to explain, calmly, clearly, that employees are working, that there are systems in place to track accountability, that telework is a part of modern workforce management. But the Republican response, yelling, "You're not answering," shouting, "You're obfuscating," and pretending that refusing to accept the answer somehow proves corruption. It's the same strategy Trump used for years: deny reality, then attack anyone who presents it. The truth is this: federal employees kept this country running during the pandemic. They processed Social Security checks, handled veterans' claims, kept food safety inspections going, and yes, managed cybersecurity and national defense systems, all while adapting to unprecedented circumstances. They deserve respect, not constant vilification from Republican politicians who themselves do little real work for the American people. Let's not forget the irony here. Republicans love to lecture federal workers about accountability, but when their own members skipped votes, went absent from committee hearings, or spent their days chasing Fox News sound bites, they faced zero consequences. Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, how often are they really showing up to do the legislative work? But when it comes to rank-and-file government employees, suddenly attendance is the most important metric of public service. Please, that's hypocrisy in its purest form. And then we got to cybersecurity. Republicans suddenly decided to care about the age demographics of IT workers. Now, yes, there is a serious challenge here. Our government workforce in cybersecurity does skew older, and we do need a pipeline of younger talent. But instead of supporting investments in training, pay flexibility, or skill-based hiring, which the Biden administration is actively working on, they use this as yet another opportunity to attack. Director Ahuja explained that there's a cyber talent management plan coming, modeled after programs in the Department of Defense and DHS, with an emphasis on skills over degrees, pay increases, and streamlined hiring. That's exactly the kind of modernization we need. It acknowledges that you don't always need a 4-year college diploma to be a great coder, an analyst, or a systems engineer. What matters is whether you have the skills. That's how you attract young talent. That's how you keep pace with China, Russia, and other adversaries who are pouring resources into cyber. But the Republicans couldn't acknowledge that progress. Instead, they kept hammering with yes or no questions, trying to trap the witness in soundbites for social media. It wasn't about solutions, it was about theater. And once again, while they pretend to champion accountability, they are the ones wasting taxpayer dollars by turning hearings into political stunts. Now let's zoom out. What does all of this really show us? It shows us the fundamental divide between Democrats and Republicans in 2025. Democrats believe in governing. We believe in solving problems, whether it's protecting student borrowers from predatory colleges, ensuring government is modern and efficient, or safeguarding civil rights for every American. Republicans, under Trump's toxic influence, believe in performance politics. They believe in outrage. They believe in keeping their voters angry enough to ignore the fact that the GOP has no real policies to improve lives. Think about it. Did you hear a single Republican in that hearing propose a constructive idea for improving workforce recruitment, for strengthening cybersecurity, for making sure federal agencies operate effectively in the 21st century? Number. You heard fear-mongering about transgender youth, complaints about remote work, and badgering of a public servant trying to answer in good faith. That's it. That's the Republican playbook. And let's not miss the broader hypocrisy. These same Republicans who scream about government waste have no problem with Trump wasting taxpayer money flying back and forth to Mar-a-Lago, charging the Secret Service inflated rates at his own resorts, and pocketing millions from foreign governments while in office. They have no problem handing out tax cuts to billionaires and corporations that cost trillions. But when Democrats fight for working class relief, student debt forgiveness, or investment in modernizing our workforce, suddenly it's unaffordable. Suddenly it's government overreach. It's the same old trick: socialism for the rich, austerity for everyone else. Director Ahuja stayed professional through this nonsense, but let's be honest, no answer she gave was ever going to satisfy Republicans. Because this wasn't about oversight, it was about creating a viral clip for right-wing media. It was about distracting from Trump's indictments, from Republican failures to pass meaningful legislation, and from the deep rot inside the GOP. And this is where Democrats and all of us who care about democracy must push back. We cannot let these lies go unchallenged. We cannot allow Republicans to paint themselves as the party of accountability when they refuse to hold Trump accountable for January 6th, for trying to overturn the 2020 election, for stealing classified documents, and for inciting violence against our own institutions. They don't want accountability, they want power without limits. So when Republicans sit in hearings and shout about obfuscation, remember who they are really describing: themselves. They are the ones hiding from the truth, denying reality, and refusing to answer for their own corruption. Democrats stand for facts, for fairness, and for actually delivering results for the American people. That is the choice we face in 2024 and beyond: a Democratic Party working to solve problems, or a Republican Party addicted to chaos. And let's be crystal clear, protecting trans kids is not radical. Investing in federal workers is not wasteful. Supporting remote work and modernizing cybersecurity is not dangerous. These are common sense policies for a modern, compassionate, and effective government. What's radical is the GOP's obsession with demonizing marginalized communities, dismantling public service, and protecting the rich at the expense of everyone else. So the next time you hear Republicans scream in a hearing like this, remember, it's not about the issue on the table. It's about distracting you. It's about keeping you angry, misinformed, and divided. Don't fall for it. Stand with truth, stand with fairness, and stand with the Democratic vision for a better America. This has been Tariq Melrose Vlogs. If you found this breakdown helpful, if you want to keep cutting through the lies, exposing Republican hypocrisy, and defending democracy, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Together, we can keep shining a light on the truth and fighting for the future we all deserve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.